Alrighty. Welcome to Sevedge Sessions, episode number
3.
Is it number 3?
Yeah.
Awesome. Before we get started, I have to tell you a fucking hilarious story as
Please
I
do,
pour
as you
the
pour.
ceremonial tea.
The ceremonial tea as I fix my mic, thanks to whoever fucked with this yesterday. It was right.
By the way, if y'all hear anything in the background, Wes is currently fucking throwing up as we speak.
He
or
is.
at least dying downstairs right below me.
Do you want to explain why that is?
We got Smash Burger before we went to go work out yesterday.
This is aggravating me.
You gotta tighten it right there.
How?
To the
Where?
right. Like you got righty tighty. No. The middle
Here?
arm. The middle arm. It's really hard to tighten.
All right. Well, you tell the story.
Okay, so get Smash Burger. I thought it was fine. Wes got a milkshake, some Brussels sprouts, and some other bullshit.
I think it was the Brussels sprouts that did him in.
And we're done with Smash Burger. Shit ain't happening again. As we said yesterday, Mazel Tov.
Yes. Toda.
All right, so I gotta tell a funny story from last
That
night.
means thank you in Jew. Keep going.
So last night I'm playing chess, and I'm going against this dude who's ranked like 850. I'm terrible at chess, guys. I'm terrible. This dude's ranked like 850. So I'm playing chess. I think I'm doing really good against this guy, right? So there's 15 minutes on the clock. He does nothing for 13 minutes. And he has 45 seconds left on the clock. I have 13 minutes.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm about to kill this dude. So I get on Discord. I'm speaking with some of our students. And this guy completely annihilates me and checkmates me with 45 fucking seconds. And I was like, what just happened? Did this person... I think he pulled up like a Stockfish, like an AI app, essentially, to do it for him.
Maybe he was on the John for a little bit.
I don't know, but it was some bullshit, bro. I completely tore away my self-confidence. But today... Do you want me to fix that for you?
It's fit. This is as good as it's going to get.
Okay, cool.
Realistically speaking.
Today, what we're talking about is imposter syndrome. And what I believe is that imposter syndrome is a feature of the path to mastery. This is a really, really interesting thing. I spent a long time journaling about this morning. And I want to read what I journaled.
Beautiful penmanship, by the way, for those
Is
of
that
you.
really actually good penmanship?
I mean, show it to the camera.
No, I can't have them read everything.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so first I'll start off with a quote from Ryan Holiday. You'll never feel like you've made it, and that's a good thing. So I wrote down, when I look at myself and how I battle my imposter syndrome, I view it as my value lens of pursuit of mastery. In my eyes, I will never be good enough. And that is something I will always have a new skill that it needs to be improved. An example of this is a ship of Theseus. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a
Greek situation?
it's a Greek scenario. So essentially, the ship of Theseus, or whatever it is this idea that, let's say you built a ship, right? And that ship is used over 200 years. And over that 200-year period, a new thing is replaced on the ship every other month. And by the end of that 200-year period, it's the same ship. It looks the same, but every single piece has been replaced. Is it still your ship? It's a completely different ship, but it looks the same.
Gotcha.
And I view like that's been my journey. I will never be good enough in my own eyes. Like, genuinely, I mean that. I'm always going to be finding something new to work on. Jiu-jitsu is a great example of this. I always have something very specific I'm focusing on, and I believe the path to mastery relies on your ability of skill acquisition, which means that you have to be pursuing 24/7 an area that you need to improve on. And so it's that exact same parable. You might look the same, right? But something is always changing. I try to tell people I am a completely new person every 3 months. So to continue off that, I've acknowledged I'll never reach the finish line, and that my only hope for my daily life is to accept and understand this is the life that I chose. And this is something really mindful. It's especially painful when you start your journey. And when you believe that when you're no longer who you were and you start the journey, let's say it's to learn how to code or become a marketer, you separate yourself from the old group of people you were around, right?
Right.
Who maybe didn't have the aspirations. You're breaking status quo now, right? So they're going to be saying things like, who do you think you are? You think you're smart enough to learn how to code? You think you're smart enough to go create ads? You think a business is going to hire you to do that, right? So you see that on one paradigm. And then you see at the other paradigm, those are that successful. And then every single day is a constant reminder of every minute that you aren't good enough and how far away you are from having success. And your constant reminder is failure. Every single day, you're fucking up and you're failing every single moment. That's what the imposter syndrome is. It's this massive gap between where you are and the people that you imagine, right? Who you were and the people you imagine. This trip is just a trip through hell, and you don't get out of it, right? Even the people we look up to as doing great, they're consistently challenging themselves. And every day is just a persistent reminder of how you're not good enough. And this is why I say it's a feature of mastery, which is imposter syndrome. It drives us forward, and it's both the reason we achieve great success and the reason we feel great inadequacies and pain, right? And the final quote I have from Robert Greene is, mastery is the process of us learning who we are, right? And we're uncovering new parts about ourselves every single step of the way. So I know for a fact students are going to listen to this, and they're going to see the imposter syndrome they're feeling. How am I going to be able to do this? I'm not good enough. It's because they're comparing themselves to these people who are here. And they're also looking at their old selves of being like, hey, who do you think you are? You think you're smart enough to do this? And these people are saying, oh, this is easy. And so you're stuck in this endless failure feedback loop.
Right.
And I think that's where I want to take this conversation initially.
Let's take it.
What stands out to you about that?
Well, let me ask you a question. You mentioned the people that discourage you. Kind of like one of the things that kind of like what you're saying, I always look at myself 6 months to a year in the past with like a sense of embarrassment almost.
100%.
So the friends that you keep, you've heard that kind of cliche at this point. You are the sum of the 5 people that you're around. How does someone change who they're around?
Oh, what a great question.
Because if you think about it, if you're getting nonstop discouragement, if the people around you don't have ambition, the first step to this road is to change that and to get around people that are either where you want to be or going where you want to go. So how do you do that?
So how do you change who you are and who are the people you're around?
Yeah.
We first have to acknowledge you can't change the physical location of who you're around. Like, you literally can't change that. In my journey, the way that I made that change was by creating those friends. What I mean by that is, first, books, audiobooks, music. Like, I flooded my head with that. I wouldn't really talk to people near as much. I flooded myself with audiobooks when I worked out, when I walked, when I lived, when I played video games. It was podcasts. It was books. Like, I flooded that into my head.
I've been on a plane with you. I see how you get
exactly.
down.
I flood my head with that stuff.
Yeah.
Next is probably online groups. That's the beautiful part of like the general Discord chat we have. Like, it's a whole bunch of people who get together. Last night I got in with only like 4 other students, and we just chatted on Discord, right? Provided, like, one of our students was like, man, I fucked up. I've been off for the past 3 to 4 months. I said, bro, don't sweat it. You're here at 10 o'clock at night. I am so proud of you. Like, you hopped on. I don't give a fuck if you didn't make it last time. You're here now.
Progress is progress.
Progress is progress. Don't fucking look back. We're survivors. We're moving forward. Just like what we talked about in episode 2. We're survivors. We're moving forward. Fuck the past, right? We cannot allow ourselves to use that reference point. Compared to who you are 3 months ago, you got more activities in now than you did previously. I think that's the only way. Like, you have to flood yourself with podcasts and audiobooks for the fact that you can't change your physical location, and probably just limit the people you're around.
Well, you mentioned the importance of reading and just kind of like taking advantage of a lot of this knowledge that's out there. Do you think that there are too many people out there that kind of like leave that by the wayside? Because, there was that video from something Bet David. What's his name?
Patrick Bet David.
Patrick Bet David, fellow Jew. And
no, he's not Jewish. He's
not Jewish, ladies and gentlemen. Bet David is usually something you would see in our culture.
He's from I forgot what.
Lebanon, Syria.
I think he's Syrian. I could be wrong.
Ambiguously Middle Eastern man. But he mentioned this whole thing of like, take 2 years, go on Amazon, read
Yep.
20 of the top rated 4.5-star books on money, 20 of the 4.5-star rated books on
Marketing,
psychology,
sales,
marketing. And if you can't come to me in 2 years with something, I'll pay for all that shit. I'll pay for all that education you got. You don't see a lot of people reading these days.
I think number one, it's hard to read, right?
It is.
Physically. Like
Yeah.
a physical book is really hard. I think the solution is audiobooks for most people and going on a walk around the house or doing it while you clean. The way that I like to imagine this is, and the journey I did was I listened to audiobooks when I played video games, when I did everything. Like all my daily activities, I had an audiobook or a podcast in. And I think by doing it with passive activities, you're not going to consume as much. But the beautiful part is you're filling your head with different information from the environment that you're currently used to.
Well, we've had a situation now where we've been doing this book at a month thing. Was it 4 months running almost? 5 months? Where as a company, each month we read a different book that has sort of a different philosophy. And Crucial Conversations is a really good example. Kind of things that are meant toward opening your mind to different levels of communication,
Absolutely.
understanding, and things like that. Is there one book that someone that's starting this journey today, someone's watching this and they're like, you know what, I'm fucking sick of this. I really want to make a difference. Is there one book you'd recommend they listen to?
So based off this conversation, and I think what helped me the most, Mastery by Robert Greene. So this is what's really interesting. We have a large coding audience, so we have to factor that in when we talk about
How you
this.
doing, boys and girls?
So there's features and bugs, right? I just got done watching Silicon Valley, and at the end of Silicon Valley, they built this amazing network. And it turned out part of that amazing network that was decentralized, that had AI building it and making it much more optimized by the day, it realized that it needed to be able to break any encryption method to be able to send stuff in a faster way.
Yeah.
And they realized a feature of what they built, it's not a bug, it's a feature, right? Is that it will make everything public. There's no such thing as privacy in the world if they launch that software. And so at the very end of the show, spoiler alert, they end up killing the company. And they're like, we have to make this tank and we have to make it very public so that nobody knows about it, right? So these guys created something so powerful that they ended up having to kill it. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a moment.
Robert Greene.
Yeah, Robert Greene. So with Mastery, the process that he talks about is the obsession of understanding that imposter syndrome. That is what pushes you forward. I would love for people to take this idea of treating their career with a mastery lens, changing the lens that we have. So we talk about trauma lenses, the way that impacts how we see the world, impact with people, and maybe our inner dialogue with ourselves. Being able to put on our mastery lens, right? We put that baby on, it changes the way we probably view the world. So I actually have some quotes I want to pull up from Robert Greene that I sent to myself that I think is, man, absolutely beautiful in how it goes about this. And what's really neat about this book is my imposter syndrome. The way that I tackle it is by educating myself. Like my supreme confidence comes from the fact that I know in any scenario I get in, I'm going to be able to self-train myself to handle it, right? So in jiu-jitsu, so for about the first 3 years of me training in jiu-jitsu, I lost like 2 matches openly, and it was humiliating against people I firmly felt I was better than. And what ended up happening was I then restudied, and I got really, really good at jiu-jitsu. Then I had this fight to win match, which is like a pro match for grappling, and I killed this dude. Right? Next day I have a tournament. I go to the tournament, I'm like, I'm going to murder these dudes. Like every time I walk in a tournament, I feel like I'm going to kill these people. Like it's game over. And I lost 3 matches in a row. That has never happened in my life. When I tell you I had an existential crisis, I had a genuine, the world flipped upside down. I couldn't understand what just happened. And I didn't get submitted. I lasted out everything, but I was just exhausted. It was so fucking embarrassing to me. And instead of quitting, and I got so much shit from people, right? Specifically one guy in our gym who just trashed me. And I sat there for a moment. I said, I'm going straight to work. I went home that night, looked up specific things that I needed to improve on. And now that exact same problem I had, that loss led to the biggest jump in improvements I've ever made. And I think this is where we see, when we view this imposter syndrome, the feature of it is that it pushes us to our greatest strengths. It pushes us to our greatest successes, right? The downside is it could easily give us the most pain.
Right.
I was in so much pain and so embarrassed because I was like, I'm better than these fucking guys. How did this bullshit happen? This is insane. I am better than them. What led me to do everything with Devslopes, everybody I saw when I was kind of getting started on this like entrepreneurial path, everybody was going out starting these bullshit, like they were business owners and CEOs. You have one employee, like it's just you. You aren't a CEO, right? You outsource everything to first or third world countries where you pay people $2 an hour. I don't think that shit is acceptable. That's bullshit. That's not cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to build something where people got great benefits. People would be proud to work for me. They see the vision I have. I'm challenging people. They're getting paid more money than they ever would. They're developing skills they've never been able to get. And so the imposter syndrome behind that was, Nathan, you better not turn out like these people. Who do you think you are? And then also was like, who do you think you are? You think you're going to be able to do that, Nathan? Right?
Yeah.
Like you fucking idiot. You have no experience with this. You couldn't even graduate like college. Like you were there for a semester. You failed countless times over and over again. You don't even know how you're going to find XYZ. Like this is going through my mind on a consistent basis. And the way that I tackled it was mentorship, listening to books, and becoming delusional. I'm going to do this. I don't fucking know how, but I'm going to make this happen somehow.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what created the life for me. So the way that I firmly believe the way that you tackle this imposter syndrome is when you accept this mastery path. And this, I want to read just a handful of quotes.
Yeah, please do.
From Robert Greene on this. Man, it's so beautiful. Think of it this way. There are two kinds of failure. The first comes from never trying out your ideas because you're afraid or because you're waiting for the perfect time. This kind of failure you can never learn from, and such timidity will destroy you. The second kind comes from a bold and venturous spirit. If you fail in this way, the hit you will take to your reputation is greatly outweighed by what you learn. Repeated failure will toughen your spirit and show you with absolute clarity things that must be done. The future belongs to those who learn skills and combine them in creative ways. Dude, exactly what I looked for from you. I get, when I look at like the employees at Devslopes, I think a lot of them are like the outsider type individuals.
We are a gang of ragtag misfits.
Our marketing department looks nothing like everybody else. You have no shirt on.
I have no shirt on.
Like we don't look like normal people, right? And this is the beautiful story I love for all of our students. They're not the normal fucking people. We're all different.
And that's the point, is that the reason why we're able to help these people is because these were our stories at one point. This is not some guy that's pretending to be altruistic. I'm going to quote Taylor Swift here. We got a lot of narcissism disguised as altruism these days. People want to broadcast things not to help people, but to solely, affect their bottom lines. And it's like, if you've never been there, who the fuck are you to tell other people? But every single person in this company, I mean, I'm not going to say his name, but we had many, many months ago, I told you about a very dear friend of mine. And I told you, hey, one of the reasons I think he'd be good at this is he used to sell some stuff when he was a little younger.
Hustler.
He was a hustler. And think about the reaction that would get at a typical job interview. So what were you doing in college? Well,
slinging dope.
I was. Well, don't be so blunt, Nathan. But yes, I was moving that rock. We, or you rather, and then like collectively as a we see the good in people. We see the potential in people. 100%. And I remember when Wes came on. God help him. He's vomiting his brains out right now. But I remember when he came on. He told me, I don't know if I can do this. This makes me nervous because I've the pressure. Look at him, not even a week later, just seamlessly integrated. Let's circle back real quick because there's a lot of good quotes in there. There's a sentiment of fortune favoring the bold.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this before. Is it better to speak or die? A lot of men out there are real lonely. They like a girl or whatever. They have a million different complexes and stop signs that come into their mind rather than just walking up and saying hello. This circumstance applies to so many different elements of life. Fear and failure, fear of failure. These are, in my opinion, the two biggest things that contribute to people not trying. Well, I know this is going to hurt. I know this is going to be painful. I don't want to experience pain. I've already experienced so much pain.
Sure.
So do you think that with people in these situations, recontextualizing that is necessary? Like, you have to look at failure as just as imposter syndrome is a... what did you refer to it as? A technique or
it's a feature of the path to mastery.
Feature of a path to mastery. So is failure. So is pain.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
They're gonna be outputs that's gonna happen. And it's kind of like, I want to acknowledge, if you're listening to this right now and you've taken that journey, what you did is you built your ship, even though it was incredibly scary.
Mm-hmm.
And you took the idea of, hey, I think there are lands out there that I want to explore. I'm going to ship my ship. We're going to push out in the ocean. I don't exactly know where I'm going, but I have an idea of the direction I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going into uncharted territories. But what you're going to hear about is everybody else who has seen these lands, the other people who brought their riches back from it. You're like, fuck, okay, they did it. Then you have everybody else saying, you don't know how many people were lost at sea. You don't know what happened to them. You don't know if they made it, right? You don't know if they're going to come back.
Yeah.
Their family's over there. Their family's suffering right now. You don't know what happened to them. So you're sitting there like, man, do I try to go get my riches? Do I try to go on my journey, my legend? Or do I stay back because I might fail?
You stay where it's safe.
Yeah, and I say, fuck that, ship your ship, accept that it's going to be terrible regardless.
Yeah.
Right? And this path to mastery, I think, is the human path. It's the path that we are meant to be on. Since the beginning of time, we have had hands that were built to do something with, right? Idle hands are not good, right? When you look at people who have idle hands that don't have a path that they're on, there's no path to mastery there. They're typically some of the worst humans to be around. They're not fun. They're mean. They're cynical. They're the people that scream scam, scam, scam because they're ultimately so upset with themselves.
Yeah.
And that sucks. They're not the individuals who have had the success and they're able to recognize what people are doing to take advantage of other individuals, right?
You think about when you're at like a gathering. I was at one with my girlfriend recently, talking about saving sharks in the ocean, good shit. And this guy is just scoffing at every presentation, making wisecracks here and there, all this bitter jadedness. And think about those types of people when you encounter them. How do they make you feel? Are you one of those people? The people watching this, like, do you look at everything with this kind of distrust and skepticism because, well, it's all bullshit.
Yep.
And these are personality traits. It's funny you mentioned that. One of my favorite lyrics of all time is "The devil will find work for idle hands to do." When you are not pushing towards something, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've known have gotten hooked on drugs because, again, comfort. You want that dopamine hit, that blanket over you to tell you everything's okay. But sometimes, more often than not, it's okay to feel like things aren't okay. And in fact, you need that because every single person in this company remembers what it's like to be poor. We don't want to go back.
Yep.
And
that's what, it's funny. We were talking about podcasts we wanted to get me on. We were thinking about, I told Clint specifically that he's pretty much a PR guy.
Fuck that, we'll make our own.
Yeah, I know. I was like, Clint, put me on some entrepreneurial podcasts. Those are probably the best ones. And it's funny because my message is so different, right? I can definitely speak to an entrepreneurial audience, but I think the audience I'm meant to speak to are not the individuals who are necessarily interested in that. Maybe down the road, right? They might be interested in it. But I believe that what I'm meant to be the advocate for are those who are at stage 0 and they're making the switch to a mastery mentality. We take the mastery mentality. We accept imposter syndrome is the feature that is going to push us forward, but is also going to be the feature that gives us immense pain and inadequacies that we experience and feel on a daily basis. I was speaking to one of my executives yesterday, and we faced so many problems within that individual's unit of the organization. The problems that were being faced was a lot of people were acting in terrible ways, right? They were being children. They were complaining. They were crying a lot. And so we were thinking, what is happening here? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And, he is one of the smartest people I've ever known. But one of the problems was he was really worried about holding people accountable, right? Because he was like, man, I feel like if their failure is my fault, right? It was imposter syndrome sitting in. Like, hey, listen, this is not you. This is them. Like, you can show up, right? And do everything you can to support them. But if their willingness to grow does not match your willingness to coach, there's a misalignment there and they need to be removed. You can no longer help them.
Yeah.
And that willingness to learn, that willingness to grow is the mastery path. So if they're not on the mastery path, get rid of them, right? And the same went for him. He said, you know what, you're right. That imposter was hitting him really deep. The lens that he was viewing the team was from a trauma lens from when he was much younger, and he wasn't comfortable holding people accountable because he didn't like seeing people in pain. So this ability to understand our trauma lenses that impact and bias the way we see the world, and then being able to couple that with the mastery lens, we start getting this really unique diagram that comes together showing us how we should be able to see life. And it's so fascinating because when I hear stuff like this, it makes me so excited, right? So an example of this is when I leave therapy. I know a lot of people leave therapy and they're really hurt, right? They're in worse spaces than they were when they started it.
Especially once that bill comes.
100%. That's why we give it as a benefit
Yes,
for
we
everybody
do.
here at
We do.
Devslopes. So a little bit of fun fact, I'm actually really proud of this. We cover everybody up to about $300 a month for therapy costs to be able to see it. So a little bit of support on what we view as a company.
Continue.
So it's really interesting, right? So my last therapy session, it was the first time I spoke to my therapist about what happened to me when I was a child, and how it would impact me, right? So something that kind of helped me out was growing up. I never had validation for how I felt when I was abused from that young age for that prolonged period of time. I had to take care of it myself, which this does help me a little bit more in this quote unquote path to mastery. I don't need as much external validation. I love it, right? Words of encouragement are something I really appreciate, and it's something that's like icing on the cake, but realistically I don't need it as much because, again, I live in a survivor mentality. I'm just going to keep on fucking moving.
Keep on trucking.
Yeah, keep on trucking. It's regardless hell or high water, I just got to keep moving. But it's weird though. I finished that session. We went into depth on a lot of the stuff that was very uncomfortable for me, and I had a lot of emotions throughout that time. What was really neat though is when I left that session though, I had more clarity. My goal of being able to articulate, understand how I feel was increased. I was very happy. Of course, there's little unsettling feelings because I'm digging up stuff I haven't talked about in a long time, but I felt much better because I know where I'm going towards, right? I know the direction. My entire goal in life, I believe, is to be an advocate for this new form of education that empowers people of all backgrounds, low resource, high resource communities, mostly low resource outsider type individuals. That's who I want to help. So every time I go into therapy, every time I journal, all these things, I have the outlook of how can I articulate how these people feel? How can I help them out? How can I empower them more? And so when I'm faced with imposter syndrome, I'm like, okay, let's directly address it. Let's solve it. How can I educate myself on it? And the imposter syndrome just evolves. It gets worse. It gets more complex, right?
Yeah.
It goes from making sure I have the right lens on the camera, to making sure I have the right story, to making sure I have the perfect set of lines, to making sure I have the right actor, right? You start off with something really small, and it evolves so much because you are evolving.
What was it like for you the first time you were at a conference with a bunch of other CEOs?
Oh,
how did that
dude.
feel?
So this is really funny. I'm going to give you all a perfect example. I have a conference coming up. Bruce, Connor, and West are going to it.
Can't wait.
It's in Breckenridge. I went to it 3 years ago. It's right before COVID started. Is it 2019? I guess.
COVID began around 2020 in March.
2020 March.
I believe
it was,
so.
I think it was in February to March.
Those were the dark ages of my life.
Yeah.
I think you know why.
Yes.
We won't discuss that here.
So I will never forget that fucking trip.
Mm.
This lives in my head of infamy. So we talked about this earlier, right? My idea of what I saw business owners and successful people doing.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the examples. So I go on this trip. And at this time, I first started working with Devslopes. I was taking all the sales calls. I was bringing all the students in. I built out the freelancing portion of the program. And when I was there, everybody was doing completely different things than me. Right? Everybody was making substantially more money than me. I was the poorest person in that room. I maybe made like $110,000 a year. Again, had family, had business expenses. It was not.
Yeah.
It was much.
That sounds like a lot of money to most people, but when you got 2 kids, you got all this shit going on.
Yeah, 2 kids. Wife didn't work. There was business expenses on top of that, right?
Yeah.
And to tie to that, right? I always had my tastes are always going to be pushing my budget. That's how I naturally operate. So I am always pushing budgets as far as I can. And to be fair, I spend a fucking lot of money on experiences, right? Or sorry, educational experiences, going to conferences, buying new books, everything along those lines. So I'm here. I just remember the first day I'm sitting there, and all these guys are kind of talking shit to me. They're like, "You sell services? Like you sell product? Like,
yeah.
Why are you doing that? You do sales calls? You can just automate that. Like that's dumb. Like no one did what I did, and none of them understood me. All of them talk shit to me. They dismissed me the entire time. I loved it.
Yeah,
I fucking loved it. I knew
fuel to the fire.
Like I'm sitting there like fucking jazzed. I'm like, you motherfuckers.
Especially when you know you could probably beat the shit out of half the room.
Yeah, so at that time, there's a guy in that room who was talking so much shit to me. He's like, you're not going to be able to scale the business. I could sell your product with a VSL type video. And I was like, no, you can't, right? And he was like, yeah, I can. And I said, cool. There's a very easy way to settle this, right? You could just show me the experiences you have selling a $5,000 product with a VSL, and I'll believe you. He's like, well, I haven't done it. I said, well, suck my balls. Then I don't want to hear it then, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't want to hear you talk shit to me about how you could do something. So we're going back and forth. The entire room is watching, and I am like this guy that they put on the lowest totem pole, right? And I am just, the disrespect I felt from that. Like, in my mind, I immediately go, I'm going to show you. It might take a long time. I'm going to get you, and I'm going to show you. So it was canceled the next 2 years. We're going to it this month. And I went from not being able to barely afford the bunk rooms that everybody stayed in to now I'm getting the most expensive room in the house when I go there, right? And I'm taking multiple employees with me to it, right? Like, this is what drives me. This is the things that drive me. It's not going to drive everybody. Not everybody's going to be built that way because there's a lot of insecurities that are kind of tied into this. And yeah, it's not ideal for everybody, but it's how I work and operate, right? It's what I've been nurtured into. Like, this is part of who I am. And this is what I love. These are some of the external motivators. So that first experience was so embarrassing, being humiliated, nobody taking me seriously, being openly scoffed off.
Probably a lot of anxiety walking into that room in general, no? Or did you feel like I've earned my place here?
I felt like an outsider. Not necessarily anxiety in that room. I always have had like a form of, and this is where I think the interesting conversation starts taking place. I had assurance in myself.
Right. You believed in yourself.
I believed in myself. And I think this is what's interesting. This is my therapist has talked to me a lot about this. I always had to self-validate myself because I didn't get it, unless it was in sports, I didn't get it really anywhere else. Like I really never got it otherwise. So that self-validation, I had to be the one to kind of lift myself up. I had to be the one, like I didn't really get it a ton from my parents, my brother, or like people like that. Like it was just kind of myself. So I learned how to be my number one fan from a very young age. And it sucks because most people I feel like don't feel that, which is why I try to be the number one advocate for them, to tell them, dude, you're fucking crushing it. You're showing up. You're doing amazing things. And when you start building that self-belief that I can do this, I am resourceful, I can figure shit out of my own. One thing I love about coding, for example, is that a good coder is required to solve a lot of problems, right? So a lot of people will come into Devslopes and be initially upset that they have to go Google shit, and we will not answer problems. I'm like, guys, that is designed.
Yeah.
We're not going to help you with everything. We don't answer stupid fucking questions. If you haven't had to try to fix this on your own for 2 to 3 times, we're not going to help you. And they're like, I spent thousands of dollars on this program and you're not going to help me. It's like 100%, right? Because I want what's best for you.
It's about resourcefulness.
Yeah.
So you got to build that.
That's actually, ironically, one of the best things you could put in your resume is saying, I'm wildly resourceful. I have a high level of urgency. I set goals really well. In fact, I wrote this down.
Yeah, because if you think about it, do you want an employee who, when given a task they're unfamiliar with, just kind of sits there with his dick in his hands, or, you know, female equivalent to that expression?
Yep.
Or somebody that's like, okay, well, let me go ask the previous guy that worked on this. Hey, man, I just got tasked with so-and-so. How do I proceed? Okay, I need to go here. I need to go talk to these people. Hey, let me go talk to these people. Start to figure it out on your own. And then, like, that skill is so goddamn profitable. Because this little anecdote before you read, when I had my gallery, I was selling prints of my photography and everything and doing quite a lot of business. Excuse me. Realized that I could charge upwards of 10 times the amount if the fucking picture was in a frame. Custom framing, for those of you watching this, is one of the biggest rip-offs in this world. People will milk you for thousands to frame some shit for you.
Really?
Yeah. Or you watch a YouTube video, you buy some fucking frames yourself, you practice, you get pretty good at it, and now there's no distinguishable difference between what's hanging in a gallery downtown and the shit I'm selling.
That's fascinating.
And that's like the thing is, like, self-starting. I mean, read what you were gonna read, but I just wanted to bring that up because I think a lot of people neglect that whole thing, and they kind of, like, even if you have your head in the sand, fucking wiggle it around a little bit, see if you can pop it out or something. You know, try to look up.
Man, that's like the biggest factor is, like, if you're resourceful and you're self-starter. So powerful. We can't help. Like, I will be upfront. The one thing that I can't help is someone who is not a self-starter and not resourceful.
Yeah.
I really don't think this is, again, about self-awareness, accepting who you are right now.
Yeah.
And then accepting it that, how do I make this transition? If you are not a self-starter and you are not resourceful, I don't think the world's not going to be kind to you.
Yeah, it isn't, because that's just like, I mean, these are the beginning steps to that really long staircase of where this will all take you. And it's just like, if you can be, especially in an internet age, there's really no excuse. I mean, 5 to 10 years from now, you'll be able to learn how to fucking do neurosurgery on YouTube, for God's sakes. I mean,
probably can. Like,
you know, there's so many, and I'm not saying like that's the be all end all, because you do need guidance, you need other things, you need people who have been where you want to go to show you, mentorship, the whole 9 yards. But start to figure it out a little bit, you know.
So what I want to give real quickly is some behaviors and then values, I think, that can assist everybody in their path to mastery. So let's start with behaviors, right? So number 1, you face challenges that excite you, right? And this is also one of the reasons why people come work at Devslopes, right? Devslopes provides challenges for people that are going to excite them and that they love. Like, they're obsessed over the challenges.
Yeah.
Number 2, they're going to grow more professionally and personally than any other opportunities available, right? You want to be pushing yourself to grow professionally and personally in all areas: communication, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, all of these factors. Number 3, seek efficiencies relentlessly, right? That's how you beat competitors, right? Most companies, this is really interesting. I'll give everybody a little bit of a fun fact. I learned this over the past probably 6 months. The way the economy works is really interesting. So when inflation is low, we have this massive skyrocketing in the economy. Everything's getting cheaper. Revenues are skyrocketing. everybody's growing. They're indulging. Who cares if we spend a little bit less money or a little bit more money? Who cares? That catches up over time.
Right.
Then it gets to a point to where we have to start slowing shit down. This growth is out of control and everybody's in debt. They're leveraging debt. Everything's growing because everything seems good. And then that's when recessions start happening. A recession, in essence, all it is a focus to where companies lay off mass groups of people, right? Why do they do that? Because their profit margins started shrinking. Essentially, the companies grew their overall absolute numbers. Let's say the revenue went from 100 million to 500 million. But in that growth, their profit margins, essentially how much money they made, may have dropped from making 50 cents on the dollar to 20% or to 20 cents. So they got substantially less efficient. Now, okay, guys, we're going to have to fire a lot of people. We're going to have to get better at systems, right? And we're going to focus on efficiency. And this is how the world works. People will indulge substantially. Then they'll realize, hey, I'm a little overweight. I need to cut back down. Let's indulge. It's essentially the bulking cutting system.
It's cyclical.
Over and over. The problem where things start getting bad, there's a fine line between bulking and cutting. So there's it's funny because I remember this from the physique world. There's a general rule of thumb. If you were over, I think they said 16% body fat or something like that for men, you should not be trying to bulk. You're overweight. You need to cut down, right? I consider myself right now overweight, right? I shouldn't be trying to bulk to put on muscle. I'm fat right now in comparison, right? Like I'm okay to be aware with myself and I'm giving myself like an objective measure, right? And that's where things get really neat. We have to be mindful of this process of bulking and cutting and bulking and cutting. It will always happen. It will continue for the rest of humanity and the world, right? Bears do this, right? They overeat going into the winter because they know that food storage is going to be down and they have to be mindful of their metabolism. And when we learn this from nature, this is where things start coming in handy. So like, for example, this is what separates professional developers from those that are hobbyists. Hobbyists are like, I can write code that gets something to work. Professionals are, I can write something that can work efficiently with much fewer things that can go wrong, and other individuals will understand it when they come in and write it. They think things forward more, right? That's professionalism. And if you could learn how to be professional and efficient, you're set. Those are behaviors employers are looking for. And I will add resourcefulness to that. Now let's look at values that companies are looking for. And values, this is what builds a strong culture. So if you display these values, any company you go into, you will lift the culture. You will make it better. We could think about individuals like Steve Jobs. He came in and created a very odd culture. The first time he came into Apple, he almost bankrupted the company, right? He wasn't mature enough at that time. He left, went to Disney, crushed it, learned a lot about himself and a lot of the values he needed, came back to Apple, and then took Apple to the fucking moon. He learned a lot in that time period. So you want to be able to go into any company and build a strong culture by being there and represent really strong values. So number one, accountability, right? Do you hold yourself accountable to goals, timelines, and to KPIs? Number one, this kind of ties into accountability. You're clearly KPI focused. Right? They told me I need to have a $35 cost per application. I'm going to fucking make sure that happens. And if I fall short, there's going to be repercussions for it. Number two, number three, a bias for urgency. You push to get things done. I struggle with this substantially. In some areas, I will push so hard for like getting something done fast. For the podcast, we were only going to do this on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then I said, fuck that. We're doing it Monday through Friday, and we're starting immediately. Right? And there's sometimes I might get asked to get a video out. And it might be 12 weeks later, and nothing has been done. Right?
That's right, folks.
That's a fuck up on me, right?
Yeah.
Focus on solutions. We're not going to sit around crying. I'm not going to go to Bruce and say, Bruce, our ads aren't working. What do we do? Right? Hey, Bruce, let's sit down. Here's some ads or some ideas we can implement on to drop the CPA. Like, these are clear ideas. This is what we can do. Right? Like, you're solution focused. Another great example. Hey, Nathan, I found this office space I think we might want to move into. Okay, cool. When is it available? Oh, well, I don't know that. Fuck. Okay, well, that means nothing.
That's a really good point. I think like it's a little ultra specific, but at times people have a habit of theorizing rather than what is the actual road, the destination at the end of that road, what are the turns we're taking, like how are we getting there, how much gas do we need for the car. Like, this is a change in mentality, because everyone has great ideas. I mean, we get pitched great ideas on a daily basis, but it's like, did you think this through? And this is another thing I think employers are looking for. Are you capable of thinking something through from its conception all the way to its construction, how it's going to operate, and then the end? Not, wouldn't it be cool if? A lot of things would be cool if. Yeah. If I could fucking fly, that'd be cool. But at the end of the day, like, and this kind of like conditions people to be more practical in their thinking, you know?
Patrick David had a great example. He said that he was preparing for an event. He had this guy come to him, and Patrick David is my mentor, and he said he had this guy come to him and said, hey, I think I found the perfect place for our event to hold it. He said, great. When is availability? How much does it cost? He said, well, I don't know that. He said, well, you can leave the room.
Yeah.
He's like, you brought me nothing. He's like, you need, like, that's the specifics we need to come to, right? This is happening. This is a solution, and these are the specifics of it so that we could work on a solution together. Versus just giving, hey, I got a random idea. Like, that's one of the worst things. Don't be the random idea guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's so common. I'll give a great example, right? The common problems between marketing and sales. Right? Sales might tell marketing, hey, I think you need to be fixing X, Y. You should be doing this instead of that.
Yeah.
Well, can you give me any specifics? No. But you should be doing that.
Right.
Fuck. Okay. Marketing saying, hey, you need to be contacting XYZ. I'm doing everything. Well, do you know what it's like to have to contact these people? Do you know? So you have these two people going back and forth who are just throwing out random ideas that neither of them have experience with. Well, fuck. Like, we actually have a rule of thumb in Devslopes. I haven't talked about it in a bit. Soft versus hard feedback, right? Hard feedback is, I have experience with this. I think I know that this would work instead of that, right? If you want to go still in the direction you're going with, that's fine. But I'm telling you, I have experience with this, and if we do it this way, we have a higher likelihood of success. Soft feedback is, hey, guys, I really don't know what's going on. Can you tell me a little bit more about this before I say anything?
Yeah.
You're going to ask questions. You're going to understand. Hey, just a suggestion, just based off what I'm hearing, it might be a good idea to try this. What do you think?
And this is like a very important point, because a lot of people that are kind of going to go on this road, one of the first things you need to do is break that individualistic mindset, because you're going to be doing nearly everything within the context of teams.
Yep.
And when we're talking about the spark of an idea, the spark of an idea is to create dialogue and conversation. So what you're just talking about with hard feedback, somebody brings an idea, hey, I think we should do X, Y, Z. This will be our new campaign plan for next month. Person with more experience says, listen, I think maybe we adjust it to this. Now the road changes. Now someone says, hey, on top of that, I know a way how we can like shorten this up a little bit too. Then and even showing as an artistic example, I used to show photos that I did and photos that I made to people who weren't artists, and that's like very important, that anyone can have this mindset, and that everyone's way of looking at something is so unique and different, because the people who weren't artists would tell me things that the people who were artists couldn't tell me. They have a different way of looking at things. They would maybe say, well, it's a nice picture, didn't make me feel anything. It's all valid. So these things, not only do they help to kind of like, expand your mind to different ways of thinking, but collaboration is incredibly important. And that's something that a lot of people have to be trained how to do.
Dude, it's so funny. I remember I went to Europe right when I graduated high school with one of my friends, and I went to I saved all the money for my senior year to do this, all the money I got from graduating and everything like that. And we went to like so many like famous museums, like famous like paintings all over the place. I was like, dude, I don't get any of this shit. This is dumb.
I visited many of them when we went to London.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny now looking back. It was funny. I think what helped me learn this was Bobby Axelrod from Billions, and he literally said, he was like, it's about, does it bring out an emotion? It's not about what they drew. It's about what you see, right? Your individual reaction to it. And it's like, oh, I can appreciate that then. And it's funny, I feel like all of us need sometimes, like, there's such a beautiful lesson in there in terms of how many times do we try to understand something and we don't. It's like maybe you just need to be taught something simple.
Yeah.
I feel like almost that's what this podcast is supposed to be for.
Yeah.
Provide that little bit of, just like that right there. Or the little example from Billions. I went from seeing art as just literally pictures written by a bunch of fruitcakes to being like, oh, this is an expression that they did, even though it may not look like something.
Mm-hmm.
The entire goal of it is just to be about what do you experience and express? Does it speak to you? If it doesn't speak to you, that's fine. But it's about finding those pieces in the artists that do speak to you, just like music. It's no different.
Yeah. And it's tying this back to imposter syndrome. A lot of people are of the opinion, I don't have anything to offer. I'm not talented. And this is one of the things that I think we can hope to dismantle with this episode and future episodes, is that everyone has a way of looking at the world that is so unique and contributes so much. I used to be a pretentious motherfucker. But, you know, if you look at the background, really poor upbringing in the Bronx, family situation was, don't even get me started. And I was never supposed to go to college. I was like, I was running like credit card scams and shit like that. Like I was like making my own money and never went to school and was like constantly getting in trouble. The whole night. Like people like me don't go to college.
Yeah.
So when I got there, everything was a competition. Everything was competitive. I had this stupid fucking mindset that if you didn't graduate with at least a whatever, then you weren't worth my time.
Yeah.
As I get humbled later in life by, struggling even more than I did as a kid. Because, you get a degree, you think the whole fucking world changes. It doesn't, boys and girls. But one of the things I realized is that, I might be able to masturbate with words in a way most people can't. But I can't put together a fucking car. I can't look at an engine and tell you how it works.
Sure.
I can't. There are so many different types of intelligence, and there's so many different viewpoints, and each one of them, what's that cliche that like hard work beats talent any day of the week?
Yep. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Exactly. There you go. And it's true, because if you are, maybe you're not the most gifted at marketing, but maybe you surround yourself with enough people and you have enough exposure that after a while it just becomes like a language that you've learned. And then you become great at it.
I think you hit it on the head, right? It's literally, I think everybody's almost like an art piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is so many people don't see their own value. Like everybody listening to this right now is an artist. You're painting yourself every single day. You're developing yourself. You got to do it like this.
Oh, my bad.
So you're doing something to develop yourself every single day. Some people may have no reaction. They may not see it. In fact, they might be visibly repulsed by it. They may not like it. But you might have a vibe. Like there's people that I won't want to hire in the organization, right? That I don't think make my culture, right? But then the people that I love to hire, the people I want to hire are what I consider like the outcasts.
Yeah.
Like the people who, like we have a decent amount of people at Devslopes who have, actually, I'm not going to say this. We have a decent amount of people at Devslopes who have less than ideal pasts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they
don't look too deep into them, folks.
They are the most thankful and appreciative and hardworking individuals because all they wanted is somebody to believe in them. And it's beautiful. Like that's what it's about. Like beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Like the people that I want to support, and I think the future is going to support, are those that have the things we just talked about: high resourcefulness. They love productive conflict. They're passionate. They focus on efficiencies. They have the right attitude. They have an attitude of growth every single day. If they have the right manager who is pushing the growth and they have the right mentality of growth, they're going to connect perfectly, right? One thing I can say for sure about our executives and our management within Devslopes, everybody is pushing growth. And we've had a lot of people leave the company who were not good fits. It sucks, right? And my management style can be extremely overbearing, right? I know that I can be an absolute dickhead. Like I was talking to Ethan about this, and we're making some changes in the organization that are going to be so helpful. I'm so excited to announce them later. And so I'm sitting down with two people and I'm telling them, I'm like, guys, you are moving into positions where you're going to have a lot more time with me, right? In the past, when you've seen me, you might have seen me as an absolute asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. But you guys, the way that I see the company is that it's my job to look for how we can be more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
It's my job to do that. Like, it's not like I have to look for areas we can improve on. I don't care if we're doing great right now. We could be absolutely crushing it. We could be hitting our KPIs, and I will actually be upset because it's like, oh, this isn't good enough then. If we're hitting our goals, we're probably aiming too low. We probably need to lift our goals up. There's like a famous saying, and Measure What Matters, the book, it's focused on this idea of OKRs, objectives and key results. So an objective is to improve application quality and costs. A key result of that is getting cost per applications down to $20, right? The premise of this is you should only hit 70 to 85 to 90% of your actual key result.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit 100% of it, meaning you get it all the way down to that price, you didn't try hard enough. You should almost always miss on your key results because it should be pushing you incredibly hard, right? There's something interesting there, though, right? Does that breed an environment where it's okay of missing goals, right?
Yeah.
So this is where this really interesting environment comes from. And so we have people in the organization who do not like me. Like they do not like me.
Really?
Yeah, who knows? Apparently I could be a little bit of an asshole. But it's so funny because in my eyes, it's like, guys, we can do so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can earn so much more money, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to become more efficient day by day by day by day. I've people tell me, Nathan, that's unreasonable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, I get it, but don't we have to be a little unreasonable? Don't we have to be a little delusional to create the gap that hasn't been created? Right? And this is something that our students can take away, right? This imposter syndrome, we have to be delusional to address it. To become a master at something, we have to be delusional to even start the process.
Right.
And it's that delusional behavior, that boldness, that ambition is what we've always been rewarded for. You might take 8 years. I firmly believe this podcast, me, myself, people won't give a fuck about me for at least 8 years. Like, I don't want to build my brand off of, for example, the idea that I'm an 8-figure entrepreneur. I don't want to build it off of that.
Yeah.
I think that's nonsense, right? What I want to build it off of is what we are doing with students. I mentioned once in detail about income, and I didn't even go crazy about it. I've not once told people you should listen to me because I am doing X, Y, Z. I'm saying this is the experiences I have faced.
Yeah.
We're all in this unique struggle together. I want everybody to fucking crush it. If you show up to the table, we can help each other. And I think that's like how we be advocates for this new empowerment education, right? This podcast, what we're doing at Devslopes. This is how we help people grow into the future. This is probably the first time I've been like wildly like passionate about something on video.
Oh, you're passionate, baby.
Forever.
It's amazing. It just pours out of him, pours out of those steel blue eyes.
And it's so funny because I'm going to go on Zoom calls after this and talk like with a resting bitch face.
Well, considering who you're talking to, I don't blame you.
Yeah, that's my life 24/7.
So is there anything else you'd like to touch on with regards to
I
this?
think what I want to do to wrap this up to a decent extent is I want to one last time kind of go off of a handful more quotes from Mastery with Robert Greene. I can't recommend this enough. Guys, Robert Greene, Mastery. I want to write this out. So, in the future, the great division will be between those who have trained themselves to handle these complexities and those who are overwhelmed by them. Those that can acquire skills and discipline their minds, and those who are irrevocably distracted by all the media around them can never focus enough to learn, right? The time that leads to mastery is dependent on the intensity of the focused. This is the last one I want to end it with because I think this really ties into where our students are. So from going from zero to mastery, this process. And, when you start the journey, you move away. You take one large immediate step away from who you were and the group of people you're around. And then you're a gajillion steps away from where you imagine you need to be able to have success. People around you constantly are under the pull of their emotions. Change their ideas by the day or by the hour, depending on their mood. You must never assume that what people say or do in a particular moment is a statement of their permanent desires. And in addition, your mood, your desires, everything is going to be evolving once you start on the journey and path to mastery, and what I believe is everybody's individual legend, what we are destined to do. Once we start that path to mastery, I believe for the first time in your life, you are doing what you were destined to do. Take the hard path with pain, with great achievement, with great inadequacies, and just suffering. That's what the path to mastery it is. It's also the most fulfilling. And in that path, you're going to grow so much. I am a completely different human than I was a year and a half ago. Completely different. And I've accepted that, right? People tell me all the time, Nathan, you've completely changed. Goddamn right I have. I'm not the same person.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm a substantially better person.
Yeah.
All the way through.
Yeah.
And it's okay that your mind changes, your ideas change, but always understand that imposter syndrome is a feature of the path to mastery. It is not a bad thing, it is a good thing. And when leveraged appropriately, it will propel you to great success. It will also, at multiple times, make you feel completely inadequate and that you are not good enough. Leverage that to focus your energy back into the skills you can develop, the behaviors you're using, right? Or do your behaviors reflect somebody who employers would want to hire through what I just talked about, right? You can go back and re-listen to that segment. Do you have the right values of accountability, wanting to push yourself? Are you setting the right goals? It's really intimidating initially, but the one way you could just master this and just get started on something is to go back into the course, right? If you're a student in Devslopes, go back in, watch a video, do some exercises, and then tomorrow, wake up, do some exercises.
Create a routine.
Work on your work. Create the routine of an artist or a craftsman focused on their mastery path. Accept and understand you are on your personal legend. You are on your path to your personal greatness. And there's going to be a lot of pain and struggle in there. But anybody listening or watching this right now, I believe that you're destined for greatness. It's going to take 6 to 8 years to fulfill a fraction of that, but you can get your first foot in the door in about 16 to 24 months. And I believe that's the beautiful part about all of this. So this podcast, the resources we create, the daily vlogs, all these things are to give small resources that can propel you and help you for the process between now and then. And I can't explain enough just how excited me and Bruce are just to be a part of that journey. And honestly, how thankful they are just to be listening to us. Yeah, I might have had a little bit of success. You've been able to go on your journey. The fact that we could be helpful for people like this is fucking insane.
It wasn't always this way.
Fuck no. Guys, that's it for this episode. Couldn't appreciate you any more for listening. We'll see you on episode number 4.
Yeah.
See you guys tomorrow.
Take care. Alrighty.
I feel like that was a really solid episode.
They're all really solid. I wonder why.
Dude, we're getting so much better.
Yep.